also feeling that same sense of anger, maybe that same sense of contempt toward death. And as we stare death in the face and process the passing of Doris, may the stories we tell today help us remember the wonderful and exciting life of Doris Stevens. Now, as many of us sat yesterday on the Zoom call, and I listened to Keith and Mel and Martha, Patty, Kitty, Shannon, John Sampson, Abby, Megan, Lauren Clay, Sarah, and myself. We heard them talk about their mother and their aunt and our grandmother. But I kept hearing three words come to me: faith, fun, and fire. Doris Stevens, y'all know where I'm going with that. Doris Stevens, born August 18th, 1925, is not easily captured. And speaking about a formidable character like her is not an easy task, especially when I've only been given about 24 hours. The complexity of Doris is what made her so compelling, so interesting, and so unique. With every story and memory told by my mom or my aunt or my uncle and sister and cousin, I felt more intrigued, but less able to pin her down. And let's be honest with ourselves here. Were any of us ever able to pin down Doris Stevens? I think the staff at Pine Meadows Nursing Home would have an answer to that question. But that's what made Doris so special. We couldn't pin her down, and we still can't. Faith, fun, and fire. Many of us here love Jesus because of the faith of Doris Stevens. Her niece Patty came face to face with that faith in a pool one day. As Patty put it, Doris ran into her when she was on fire for the Lord. Cornered and trying to avoid an awkward conversation, Doris pressed Patty about her relationship with Jesus. Patty could no longer ignore the coldness in her life because of the boldness of Doris. And it was that conversation that brought Patty back to Jesus. But Patty wasn't the only one. As Mel said yesterday, half the women in Russell went to heaven because of Doris. And whether it was at church, leading a Bible study, buying a new pair of shoes for a boy in need, welcoming strangers into their household, cornering someone in a swimming pool, or me using her theology books when I was in seminary, Doris' faith compelled her not to just tell others about Jesus, but show others about him too. And that took a lot of courage on her. At the height of her teaching about Jesus, women were looked down upon and even barred from doing just that. But Doris refused to suppress her faith. She refused to quit telling the good news of Jesus just because she wasn't a man. And I'm confident that Doris has already heard the words of God saying to her, "Well done, good and faithful servant." As we all kept bringing up all sorts of memories, interactions with Doris, one word that kept coming over and over again was humor. And no one sitting here today can deny the humor and wit of Doris Stevens. She was fun. She certainly had a partner in crime, her sister Martha. I don't think any of us will ever be able to erase the images from our heads and sounds from our ears when Doris and Martha were together. Their laughs, their silliness, their lightheartedness. And I can only imagine them at the University Inn in Bowling Green jitterbugging on the dance floor in their youth. Uncle Keith was exactly right when he said that humor was instilled in all of us from very early. We learned that over the years, calling a loved one a heifer or describing another member as a chuff was not said with contempt, but as a term of endearment. As John Sampson said yesterday, we are a family that certainly knows how to laugh at each other. And there's a lot to laugh about, because life was never boring with Doris Stevens. She had a difficult relationship with cars and driving. She didn't start driving until the age of 29, and in her short stint as a driver, she managed to get pulled over for going too slow. Driving with Doris isn't a memory that probably many of us have, and for that, we can all be thankful. Many years ago, she would ride around with her beloved husband, Joe, on his calls in Russell. And one time on a call, Joe pulled up to a house on a hill, put the car in park, and got out. But moments later, through some sort of tragic chain of events, the car leapt into reverse and grandmother went careening down the hill backwards, over a country road and straight into a ditch. My mom tells a story of moving to Lexington accompanied by their dog, Cleo. Cleo barked and yelped while standing on Doris's shoulder the entire way down to Lexington. And when Mom asked Doris if they could do something about the yelping, she insisted while white-knuckling the steering wheel that everything was fine. When Doris wasn't careening off the road or getting pulled over for going too slow, you could find her crafting. All kinds of Christmas trees, and stuffed animals, ornate doll houses, dresses, pillows, you name it, she did it. And if you ever watched her sew, you would know the face she made. Go ahead, do it. Sewing mouth. I owe a lot of my love for theater to my grandmother. She cultivated that little boy's love for performing. Somewhere in my closet, I still have 2 capes that she made me. A Batman cape and the Beast's cape from Beauty and the Beast. I wore those capes everywhere I could, and I'm not sure that she knew at the time what a little cape like that would turn into. Only a few years later, I would be sitting in the house of the Tulsa Performing Arts Center during Tech Week when I was in the national tour of Disney's Beauty and the Beast. And I vividly remember sitting there as a 10-year-old, thinking to myself how cool it was that just a few years ago, I was performing all of the music from the show in my house with that cape on, and now I got to do it for real. Abby reminded us of all the times we sat around the table at Clay's Mill playing dominoes and triominoes, while Shannon vividly remembered drinking tea sweetened with Sweet and Low. Megan will never forget grandmother and granddad giving a makeover to our dog Violet, complete with blush and eyeshadow. All of us can agree that grandmother and granddad's house was the place to be, especially when you were sick or acting like you were sick. Their house was so fun, and you always left just a little bit happier. Later in life, and for 20 years, Doris was the life of the party at Pine Meadows Nursing Home. It seems that every time we walked into the nursing home, the staff would meet us with a new, hopefully funny story about grandmother. One highlight was her participation in the Pine Meadows Choir, which was all the entertainment you could ever imagine. And for those of us who participated in the 12 Days of Christmas, you know exactly what I mean. And if we're lucky, Aunt Kitty might even encore her performance in the 12 Days of Christmas once I'm finished. The nursing home staff loved her dearly, and she brought so much life into that place for so many years. But Doris could also bring the fire, too. I won't make anyone raise their hands here, but I would guess most of us stepped a little too close to that fire a time or two in our lives. The same fire that burned for Jesus and the same fire that inflamed her humor was also the same fire that caused her to tell you exactly what she was thinking. And God loved Joe Stevens for that. As I said, we all at some point in our lives came face to face with that fire. For me, it was when I was screeching like a dinosaur in the basement one day. For Pike, Jeb, Matt, and John, it was when Granddad made fudge in Naples and forgot to share it with anyone else. For the nursing home staff, I'm sure they have their own litany of encounters too. For her mom, Mimi, it was when she told Doris not to go to Oklahoma and get married, and she did just that. Each year that passed, you all might have wondered whether heifer or chuff was still a term of endearment. Maybe she was saying it with just a little bit more truth. There's a lot to say for her fire. I thoroughly believe her zeal for life is what kept her going for so long. Doris was a fighter, and she was strong as an ox, or should I say heifer. There's no way to fit in every story, and it has been a monumental task to even try. It's impossible to fully capture her intelligence and her depth, her humor and her wit, her loyalty, her dedication, and her creativity. But luckily, I don't have to do it, because each of us has a little bit of Doris inside of them. Even though Doris has passed, she's scattered amongst us every single day. When you see Megan, Martha, and Mel clean every single corner and inch of their home, that's a little bit of Doris. When you feel a fire rising in your body and you want to tell someone exactly how you feel, that's a little bit of Doris. When you hear something that you don't like and your eyelids close and your eyebrows raise, that's a little bit of Doris. When you lean your head back and laugh until your sides hurt, that's a little bit of Doris. When you get into sewing mouth position where you're crafting, that's a little bit of Doris. When you get the courage to go against the grain and refuse to accept the status quo, that's a little bit of Doris. There's a line from the show The Haunting of Hill House that so accurately paints the picture of this. In the show, a deceased sister comes back to comfort her brother, and she says to him, "There is no way. I'm not gone. I'm scattered into so many pieces, sprinkled on your life like new snow." Doris is not gone. She's scattered amongst each of us in so many pieces, and sprinkled on each of our lives like new snow. Our lives are forever changed because of how deeply she cared for us, loved us, and served us. We owe it to her to be good to each other, to respect each other, to forgive quickly, to hold each other tight, and to serve each other as she served us in her community. And I want to close with something Uncle Keith said yesterday. Whew. He said, because of how much I respect Mom and Dad, I never wanted to do anything to embarrass them. And I still don't. I think Uncle Keith speaks for all of us. We stand humble in front of the memory of Doris. We can only hope that we can make both she and Joe proud of each of us every single day. But now it's time for each of us to step up and carry on what Doris started and instilled in each of us. We'll miss you, Grandmother. Thank you for loving us so much. Let's pray.